much. I hope everybody had a nice lunch. It did. It's been great so far. And I'm just here to kind of continue the conversation, maybe shift it a little bit. My topic, I'm going to be talking about the Forum for Classics, Libraries, and Scholarly Communication, which actually is a group that's very similar to the Digital Classics Association in many ways. The group is currently 8 years old. As you can see, here's my outline that I'll be talking about. I'm going to be starting with talking with the group itself, and then the main project, which is linking texts that are online to library catalog records maintained and created by the Library of Congress. So I'll be kind of talking about the partnership there. I'll be showing you an example and just kind of touching on the overall environment that we find ourselves in currently and how you can contribute. So the audience, as you know, as I encountered already today, is very receptive and welcoming, and everybody is welcome to contribute to this project in particular because it's not limited to just one institution, it's all over. So the group itself, again, is abbreviated the FCLSC, and haven't quite come up with a way to say it yet, but that's what it is. It had its birthday in 2005, and then so right now it's 8 years old. So kind of like the DCA is just starting out. This group was starting out a few years ago as well. It's also an affiliated group of the American Philological Association, and it's had annual meetings at the APA. As an affiliated group, some of the topics that the group talks about there are library developments worldwide, different reports and publications related to data sets that are maintained by different libraries across the nation. So very kind of similar and similar overlapping topics in a lot of ways. And here's some ways to kind of get involved with this group if you're interested in the website, and the listserv is pretty active. And it's open, membership is open to anyone. In particular though, leading up to my topic today, at the 2009 meeting is where this project that I'll be talking about really took off. This meeting led to the Library of Congress-led matching project, where we noticed that some things were progressing and that we could do this in a perhaps better way. So the different ways that this came about, there were two things that were very important to its success. One was the support from the APA Vice President of Research. He was able to write us a letter for the project in support of the general project and kind of lend support in that way. And also at the Library of Congress, their classics specialist librarian submitted a proposal to two directorates in the Library of Congress, which I'll get to in a little bit, but that's the Collections and Services and the Acquisitions and Bibliographic Access directorates. So the basic idea of the project is to add electronic version links to bibliographic catalog records created and maintained by the Library of Congress. So why the Library of Congress? Why not other libraries? Well, because we have in library land, there's a major catalog, it's called WorldCat, and it kind of is the master catalog that all libraries both retrieve records from and submit records to if they do original cataloging. So libraries who perhaps don't have certain subject expertise or language expertise, and now with so many endangered and indigenous languages in the world, that subject expertise is often thinly spread. So different libraries have different strengths, and they contribute to this master catalog, and they get records and they contribute records. And the idea is that this knowledge would be shared with all of the libraries. So WorldCat is accessible. There's a public version accessible at worldcat.org. And then library cataloging departments have a different way to kind of submit records to that catalog. And the idea is that we would enhance these records by not only where it says title, author, but also electronic version is available at, and then click this link. So that's the general idea, is that we would enhance the existing records by pointing to an electronic version that's available online. This activity was already in practice at the Library of Congress, which has a very well-known rare book and special collections division, and we'll kind of see an example of that here. The Rare Book and Special Collections Division has been doing some work already with digitizing rare books, in particular because they're very fragile. so easier to give everybody access by digitizing them. And so they have digitized these books, and then they've also gone back into the catalog and added an electronic link back out, so you can click on that and then actually see the whole book. So this is an example of where you would see that the bibliographic information would query the library catalog and then display the catalog record. You basically click here on bibliographic information, it would take you to the catalog. And there is also additional precedence for this kind of activity at the Library of Congress in other ways. So I mentioned the rare books was already doing it, but also in general, the humanities collection, which is broader than just the rare books division, but all in the general humanities collection, there was this bibliographic enrichment advisory team, which was this really great group with its origins in the 80s and the 90s, and their activity was to do exactly this, to enhance these catalog records by adding things like abstracts, annotations, table of contents, and e-resources, which are all the things that all these surveys are saying that people want when they access their catalog. They don't want to know that it's on the 5th floor and it's in this stacks, but they want to see examples of what the text actually looks like. So that's what this Bibliographic Enrichment Advisory Team, or BEAT, was doing in the 80s and 90s. As that activity morphed into other things, some of those individuals now are helping us with this project. So many people to thank for this general activity. There's also additional precedents for this. The Government Printing Office has also been adding links to their electronic government publications. So, for example, here in this catalog record, it's an annual report from the National Agricultural Library, and then at the bottom you'll see a link to the electronic version of that. So this was not a new idea, but it was kind of a new way to particularly connect both the classics texts and general collections in the Library of Congress, which of course the collections of the Library of Congress are the nation's collections. So the idea is that the members of the Forum for Classics, Libraries, and Scholarly Communication, which, as I mentioned, membership is open, but it primarily is a lot of classics librarians, classics enthusiasts, library researchers. They would hear of these digital texts and kind of start making lists of, oh, I saw that this digital text was available in Perseus, and somebody came into the library the other day and wanted to access it, so I pointed them. But we could centralize this kind of information and actually enhance the catalog records. If the idea is that the main point is that the digital version does have to be the exact edition that the catalog record is pointing to. So it makes good use of these members' attention to detail, and that the same edition must be the same edition that's actually represented in the catalog. So as you all know from working with classics researchers, detail is very important, and if it's the wrong edition, then it doesn't work as a match. The idea is that the librarian, the classics librarian, would make a list of these matches, and there's different strategies for how librarians are making these matches, but eventually they would get a list of maybe 5 or 10 matches, forward them to the Library of Congress contact, and then they would enhance their records. And we'll see a little example of that here. How do they enhance the records? Primarily it's through going into this one field in the MARC record, which MARC, general familiarity with MARC format. Yes, at least it's a, right. It's a term that we're kind of familiar with. But as of course, a week ago, it's the MARC format, and then it's been interpreted through these AACR2, Anglo-American Cataloging Rules, which as of a week ago, they've adopted RDA, or Resource Description and Access, which Tom made a little mention of in the semantic web conversation. But back to MARC. So MARC has many different fields. One field describes the author, one field describes the title. One field, called the 856 field, describes the electronic version, or the way to access this book electronically. And that's the field that we're concerned with in this project. So it's only working with that one field, so it's very minimal kind of impact on workflow because it's just that one field, but it really has a big impact on enhancing the research value of these catalog records. So let's take a look at that field that I mentioned. The 856 field is the electronic location and access field, and in that field This is all part of the MARC kind of way of describing things, but there's the 4 is an indicator, it means it's via HTTP. The 2 means that it's a related version. And then finally the subfield 3 means that it's specifying the exact material. So that's just kind of code for saying this is the electronic version of this. And why is this field the one that we're using? It's because it's already in there in 63 million catalog records already. And here on the right, you can see that all these sources are giving us the electronic versions. So for example, I mentioned Perseus. Perseus is definitely a lot of classics texts. And then you can see that all different sources supply different versions. So librarians are accessing all these sources when they're answering reference collections, and we could centralize this information in a little more controlled way. So what's the scope of the project? It's really everything. The scope is endless because classics texts cover every discipline, from astronomy to mathematics and everything in between, and they're found in every Library of Congress classification. With the leadership of the Library of Congress, they're really enabling this activity to have the staying power that it does, but it's really made what it is by the individual contributions of everybody. So everybody can contribute. And I'll tell you a little bit more about how you can help us and enhance the project. The Library of Congress, as I mentioned, is providing the leadership in terms of having the support behind this in their various divisions at the Library of Congress. For example, the acquisitions and bibliographic services, which you can think of as the cataloging section. And then they also have their collections and services directorate, which is of course responsible for collections and references in that too. So it's really bridging these two worlds. And as you can see in the couple examples that we'll see now, there's nearly 200 works that have matches now that did not have matches before. In general, this project has had success already because of past precedents, as I mentioned, but also because we've realized that cooperative cataloging and kind of sharing our strengths really has benefits for everybody involved. And WorldCat is an ideal way to get that information out into the world. Our field is also growing, so 200 matches this year. It might be even more in a few years. But in general, there's endless opportunities to really enhance this project and make it grow, because there's more sources out there to get materials from, and we're making more records of more materials that are being published, so we can always enhance that. There's over 1,100 open access journals, which I'm sure some of you might already be familiar with this source, but it's the Ancient World Online. And also Alison Babu, whose name has come up already in our conference, but she suggests that possibly we're in the 5th generation of digital corpora and classics. So possibly this can grow. So I'll just kind of take you through an example. As we're kind of wrapping up here, I'll take you through an example, and then we can see this in action. So if we go to the online catalog, we can do a guided search. What you want to do here is to enter the Forum for Classics, Libraries, and Scholarly Communication. Now, of course, this kind of search will bring up all the matches that we have contributed already. Ideally, you would be able to enter in a title of your book that you're interested in, and it would already be there. But for now, because the project is the size that it is and the scope that it is, we'll just kind of see what the work's been done so far. These are some of the books that have been enhanced already through this project. As you can see there, the electronic link is there. So when you do this kind of search, and again, this is in the Library of Congress catalog, but you can also do the same search in WorldCat, and you would get that same link too. So you can click on the link, it says eVersion identified by the forum, and that would take you to the electronic version. And this was one of my first matches that I made and submitted, and it was approved, so there's many more like it. So how can you get involved? Talk to your classics librarian. They are great. They're good resources to have around, and see if they're involved in the forum, which again, membership is open. So you can join the forum and send links on and talk to me about our contacts at the Library of Congress and who exactly to talk to. I'm happy to help you look at certain matches, and the idea is just to share our information with the rest of the world. And with that, I have kind of two concluding ideas that I can leave you with. One, when I told the other members of the forum, Classics Libraries, this comes from Chuck Jones, who is the librarian at NYU. So Tom might be familiar with his work. But Chuck Jones wanted to just kind of go along with this message, and he wanted to announce that the Packard Humanities Institute, the cataloging of the PHI online Latin text project is finally finished. So what you can do is you can go to the University of Florida's catalog, which is online. Just go to University of Florida catalog, and you can download the link of all the MARC records for the Packard Humanities Institute's Latin text database. It's at the bottom of the University of Florida Library's cataloging webpage, which is Creative Commons, so you can download all these records. And it's been a long-term project, but now it's complete. Institutions are now free to download these records to their online catalogs. And the second announcement is that, as I mentioned, I'm the reviews editor for the journal Digital Humanities Quarterly. So if anybody is interested in submitting reviews, possibly of this conference or of books or of exhibits or anything else, feel free to be in touch, and I know the journal would be happy to talk to you about that. So thank you very much.